and we're very happy to have Anna Sawyer join us. Hi, Anna, for our Neighborhood Food Network call. And Anna, are you going to, I'm going to make you co-host just in case you have something. Do you have something to share, or you want to just chat and talk, or we can share your
I had
website?
A brief presentation just highlighting the North Little Rock Community Garden program.
Great. Yes.
And then I was just going to open it up for more of a just open discussion, question and answer.
Great. Okay. So yes, so Anna is from North Little Rock, Arkansas Community Garden Program. And you have over, is it over 20 different community gardens?
Currently, actively working in our program, we have 15. We have 6 others that have kind of graduated beyond our program, so they become self-sufficient. But in the 10 plus years that we've been working, we've served over 50 urban garden spaces in North Little Rock city limits. Yes.
Okay, great. And let me see, I'm sorry, I'm pulling up. And I'm sorry, I don't have her bio in front of me. It's the wrong link. So I'm sorry, do you want to just say a little bit more about yourself, Anna?
Yeah, no, you're all good. Let me pull up what I had sent y'all just so I don't ramble on for too long.
Okay. Or I can try to find it as well.
I can read it if you want.
Yeah, go ahead, Ann.
Okay, so anyway, so Anna serves as the community garden coordinator for the city of North Little Rock. And I'm assuming that's Arkansas. Originally from Maryland, she moved to Arkansas in the summer of 2020 after receiving a Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Studies and Spanish from St. Mary's College of Maryland. During her studies, she worked as the lead farm fellow on the campus farm and was elected president of the college food cooperative. She joined Full Circle Farm Corps, an AmeriCorps program based in Central Arkansas with the goal of addressing food insecurity through a farm, teach, and outreach framework. She served as a COVID-19 relief member with the UALR's Campus Garden, Dunbar Community Garden, Heifer Village, and Urban Farm, and the city of North Little Rock, and was ultimately offered a position supervising the city's community garden program. In 2022, the North Little Rock Community Garden Program won the Arkansas Community of the Year Award, co-sponsored by the Governor's Advisory Commission on National Service and Volunteerism and the Arkansas Municipal League. She's got a passion for food justice and developing sustainable food systems for our local communities. She works diligently to connect with local gardeners and supply participating gardens with free resources and tools to ensure a successful planting season. She is also the market manager for the Argenta Farmers Market, where she works towards building long-term relationships with farmers and makers in Central Arkansas. Busy girl.
Great. And look at these gardens all over Little Rock. Beautiful.
Yes, and that is, I'll just add, that is a little bit of an outdated map. Currently, our city is undergoing a whole revamp with our website. So come 2023, that map should really expand.
Look at this, how fun. You've got a little flower and you can click on it and see the garden and all these different areas. This is fantastic. So this is a government funded program. You guys get $55,000 a year. Is that it?
Yes. In addition to my salary and, healthcare and whatnot for the program. So program was initiated in 2009. Under a grant, and within 2 or 3 years, it gained so much traction in our city that our mayor decided to write it into the permanent budget. So we are here to stay.
Yay! That is awesome. That's so great. And were you part of the initial program? Did you spearhead that or a part of it?
No. So I moved pretty young in this realm, just moved out here less than 3 years ago. And I would say I joined the program at kind of a peak moment in all of our lives. It was the beginning of COVID, which really shook all of us up. And originally the program was more geared towards reducing obesity rates in our city. And I think COVID kind of transformed the mission of our program more towards food access and food security. Yeah, and I can, if y'all are all right, I'm more than happy to share my little slideshow,
Yeah,
give
please
a
do.
little spiel, and then happy to answer any questions.
Great.
See if I can share my screen. All righty. Is that working for y'all?
Yes, thank you so much. We can see it nice and clear.
Excellent. Yeah, so I touched on this a little bit. Our program started in 2009. We used to work under the Fit to Live department at our city, which is geared towards reducing obesity rates in our city and with city employees. But in 2022, so this year in January, we were transferred to the Department of Neighborhood Services, which is a city department that works to build community relationships and improve neighborhoods, whether that be through crime reduction or beautification projects. The way our program works is that if you are within North Little Rock city limits and you're interested in starting a garden or continuing to maintain one, you can apply for up to $5,000 annually through our program for garden funding. And that could go to materials, garden materials, construction, tools, whatnot, as long as it's garden related. In addition to that, we provide all of our gardens with free mulch, super soil, and compost. We give them access to free seeds and starter plants in our greenhouse that we share in partnership with the local school district. We provide hands-on support. So although I may look officey today, 9 out of 10 times I'm in overalls and covered in compost. And we host educational workshops, share the garden successes on social media, facilitate equipment rentals, whether that be tillers, weed whackers, on occasion, the tractor, but that is a supervised rental. And we also host monthly meetings. And so we've been able to really facilitate neighborhood connections in our communities all across the city. The folks who participate in our program always joke that, you know, never in a million years would they have crossed paths with one another if it weren't for this program and this dedication to growing food and making sure that all of our neighbors are fed and know that they have access to fresh and free produce in their neighborhoods. And our little slogan is growing food for change, digging for the future. I always like to say also planting seeds of knowledge and spreading roots of change. And so a community garden is pretty loosely defined. It's just any space that's gardened collectively by a group of people with a similar passion. And so typically we tend to work with nonprofits, community centers, churches, schools, and neighborhood groups. And of course, the benefits of community garden are endless, but it increases food security, strengthens your neighborhood relationships, reduces your family food budgets and the food miles traveled to access food, preserves urban green space, increases biodiversity. I mean, the list goes on. And I would argue that community gardens are important in any space and place. But in Arkansas, 1 in 5 residents face food insecurity, which is insecure, unstable access to fresh produce. And so albeit small, we're trying to standardize this program and make it replicable in other cities. We've been contacted by cities in Tennessee, Kansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Texas, looking to replicate our model. And it's been, as I said, a pretty successful program for us. As I mentioned earlier, we support over 50 gardens. We have supported over 50 gardens in the last 13 years. I have 20 plus active gardens listed because we still maintain those relationships with the gardens who have graduated from us or become more self-sustaining. And all of our gardens are unique. They all operate a little bit differently. Some are totally community available, so anyone can come in, pick the produce at any time. Some are rental plots, some are structured open to the community, so open 8 to 5 Monday through Sunday or whatever it may be. We have some gardens that are all in ground, some that are all raised beds, some that really focus on native landscaping and pollinators. We have one at the senior center that really focused on accessible gardening for their senior citizens. So all of their raised beds are actually on wheels. And so you're able to move them around in their space. One, giving the members the opportunity to socially distance during COVID, but also giving them the opportunity to maximize sunlight through the seasons change, which is, it's the first time I've ever seen a design being used that way. And then here's a little Mod Podge of photos from the last year. We work with a lot of elementary and preschools to get the kids out and about outside, getting acclimated and comfortable to the bees and the dirt and the plants. As mentioned before, we do work days. And this is kind of a spread of all the gardens that we have across our city. So you can kind of see that they're all different. We have some hoop houses and whatnot. And then, yeah, my last slide is just our program's contact information if you all are ever interested in following up with us. But that is about all I have in terms of presentation. And so
Great.
I will happily open this up to any questions that any of you may have for me.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for sharing that. Those are beautiful images of people from all walks of life coming together. I hope you're super proud of that, bringing community together as well. Really increasing the biodiversity of people melding together. It's wonderful. So Anne has a question. First, she asks, what are those bags hanging on the safe behind you?
Oh, so those are chili peppers that we harvested at our St. Joseph Center garden. And a few of the gardeners have asked me that I dry them out and turn them into some chili flakes so that we can all sprinkle them on our food at our next garden manager meeting in January.
Great. And so that's after they've been dried. They're
Yes.
now in bags. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You don't want to dry them in plastic bags because then
Yeah, and so actually these, I'll pull them up. These actually aren't plastic bags. They're like aerated bags.
Oh, good. They're aerated. Okay, good. There you
Yeah, and so this was the easiest way for me to do this in my office at home. I have a shed where I hear things from rafters, but I do not have that here.
Then do you just grind them up? Do you like put them in some type of grinder or blender?
Yeah, just like any pepper or coffee grinder. You can just throw them in there and yep.
Great.
Garden to table seasoning.
Awesome. Very easy too.
Yes.
Very easy to do that. So Anne is also asking, do you charge for the plots to pay for the water? Do you have mandatory work days for gardeners, or is it all volunteer for produce?
So every garden has their own garden manager. So I help facilitate the program and address the overarching needs of gardens. So that would be soil, seeds, construction, and deliveries. But the gardens that do charge per rent typically do it on an income basis. Whatever you pay is reflective of how much your annual income is. And those funds strictly go to covering the water bills and or if the garden has a greenhouse on site, the electric bill for the greenhouse and the starter plants. And then all the gardens are entirely volunteer based. Gardens in our program do have the option if you're a nonprofit or a church, you have a business license, they have the option to pursue larger grants to get some sort of, whether it be part-time or full-time position at that garden. But that's not something that our program can facilitate since we are taxpayer funded.
Okay, so the $5,000, if somebody wants to start a garden in your area,
Yes.
or if they want to implement this program in their city or town,
Mhm.
somebody applies for a $5,000 grant, what can that money go to? Is it just water and electricity, or can it go towards a manager?
No, so the money that people can receive from our, we'll call it a grant program or a
Yep.
funding program, that can be used for seeds, plants, garden construction, tools, materials. So like if you're building raised beds, you can apply for wood and a nail gun and screws or whatever that may be. You
Okay.
cannot use the money to pay for overhead costs
For water.
for water, or for electric, or for staffing.
Okay.
And that just has to do with the fact that we're taxpayer funded. So there are limitations in what is allowable.
Okay, so then you're saying the income that they get from selling the produce is how they pay for the water? Is that what you said?
So no, that would be, so if I had a garden and I had 50 raised beds and you came to me and you said, I want to garden in a raised bed for a season, I would say, okay, well, the cost for the year is going to be $25, and what you pay me would go to a water bill.
Okay, got it.
But what my program delegates is going to garden construction projects, essentially.
Okay, so then so somebody can make 40 raised beds and then charge 25 or 50 bucks a year if they wanted to, and use
Yes.
that money towards the water bill. Okay,
Absolutely. And gardens do also have the opportunity, if they wanted to get into serious production and selling, that option is on the table. But pretty much virtually all of the gardens in our program are doing this to make sure that our low-income communities are fed.
yes.
So none of them are pursuing a for-profit sort of model.
Right. Okay. And there are some places, for instance, in Detroit, where they have 20,000 volunteers that come out every weekend in the summertime to volunteer on urban farms. There are many of those farms that do sell their produce.
Correct.
And the income does go towards, though, however, low income, the small groups and things like that. And they sell it for restaurants. It's farm to table to restaurants.
Yeah, there are models that have been successful like that in other cities. We haven't, in our program, we haven't seen that being of a main interest for any of our garden managers or volunteers.
Right. So when they, so Sylvan, you're next, but let me just finish this one question. So when these gardens donate food into the, low income people that are in need of produce and things like that, are there any type of insurance or laws or restrictions that make that complicated to donate, say, for instance, fresh lettuce, things like that, to maybe a food bank? Or is it not going to a food bank? Are there restrictions around, are there difficulties that they face there?
Not in my experience, no. And I'm not super knowledgeable on the legal side, hence that's why we love our legal department. But pardon, I just spaced. But we haven't run into any of those issues. And typically the gardens that do totally community-based gardening, their donations are going to places like Potluck Food Rescue or River City Ministries, that they're in our area, that focus on like homeless day resource centers. So they provide hot meals for folks who are in need. And so I've never heard of or seen any issues with our produce being donated.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thomas, you have a question?
Sort of a question and a comment. From earlier in the meeting, what I do is meditation, the method my teacher taught me to calm my mind. And I did that this morning with a special purpose. Tonight, I'm going to the West Oahu Farmers Bureau meeting. And my question and or comment is, my idea is to turn Hawaii, big goal, into 100% regenerative organic farming eventually. And I realize that can't happen fast. And I'm going sort of into the belly of the beast. I mean, Hawaii is the place where they grew the seeds to grow GMO all over the country. So this is kind of the belly of the beast. So I guess my question is, how, I mean, I've already reflected on this and have some ideas, but how are you going to deal with people who think that chemical farming and who promoted GMO, how you
Mhm.
deal with them in a way not to turn them off, to inch them along? So that's kind of my question, and open for discussion from anybody who has ideas.
Yeah, I would, for us personally, we are almost virtually 100% organic. Our program doesn't provide any sort of pesticides or chemicals to gardens to use. We're very much in the organic mindset. So rather than, for example, putting plastic row covers on our in-ground rows, we do the cardboard and mulch method, let it break down over time and suppress weeds in a natural way. Fire ants are a big problem here in Arkansas. They're an invasive species, and that is the only case scenario where we've had gardens use chemicals, because it's gotten to a point where it's become unsafe for the students who are going to that garden or whatnot. But I think that this question is a very big question. I would like to open it up to anyone else who has any ideas.
Anybody else have any ideas you want to contribute? I personally would say show them the benefits, of organic farming. For instance, increased organic matter in the soil. If you can show them any nutrient testing, which has been done, it's in some cases, especially biodynamic farming, shows higher nutrient density, which would mean healthier plants, less susceptible to pests. And there are farmers out there like Gabe Brown, who spends, I think one of the latest memes we did, and remember, was it like 67 or 76% less on inputs?
I was just gonna say that you need a lot less inputs once
A
you.
lot less inputs, so it's more cost effective. And so you have to speak their language, right? You got to bring the money issue to them and say, look, it costs less. There's less inputs. There's less management with, chemicals and restrictions and laws and potential lawsuits. In Hawaii, you guys just, there are, I think, 26 or 36 staff of employees of either Monsanto or Syngenta that won, I think, $10 million or $12 million or something like that, because they were told to go back into the fields and were exposed to chemicals in less than the 4-hour wait time. And so they were, they broke the laws basically they worked against the labels. So when you have chemicals like that, then you have the risk of lawsuits, especially if there are workers that are being required, could be volunteers even, that are asked to go do something like that. So speak their language, especially the money part. Yeah. Okay. So we have some other questions. How many people is considered to be a community garden? Are there any on private property?
How many people? I mean, that is very much dependent on your community. We have some gardens that are spearheaded by a resilient group of 2 or 3 people. Typically, what I've seen is folks in this area who spearhead those projects pretty much alone tend to be retired, so don't have the weight of job stress affecting their schedules. But we also have, our most supported garden has over 110 regular volunteers, with volunteers as young as 9 years old and as old as 87, or as senior as 87, pardon. And are there any on private property? Yes. But the stipulation with private property is when you sign into our program, if you're on private property, you sign into a leasing agreement with the city that goes for a year at a time, and then it's renewed if you opt to renew it. But what that does when these gardens choose to sign that lease agreement, it makes that space public by law for the year. So although it might be technically on private property, it becomes public property during the time of our leasing agreement.
Okay, great. And then Sylvan wanted to know, have you thought about microgreens gardens in the winter to teach kids?
I have, and I think that would be a great idea. But to be completely transparent with you all, I'm the only full-time person working for this program. On occasion, we get emergency or part-time hires or have AmeriCorps partnerships. Sadly, the program that we have worked with for the last 3 or 4 years has had some administrative difficulties. And so, and I'm just at a point, I can't tack anything more on without getting someone else to assist. So as much as I would love to do that, right now it's not in my manpower to do that.
Yeah, we're fully aware of being maxed out in the task department, but it's just an opening or an opportunity for somebody to step up and step into that role and to take on microgreens and teaching, because they grow so fast.
Oh yeah,
and it's kids just, it's just, they're so easy to add on to your salads and your sandwiches and all that stuff. That's a really good idea.
Right. Something that we have been looking to do for next year is pull in some of the farmers that I work with through my market position, as well as some like academic organizations within our state to come in and do educational workshops with at specific gardens to address the needs of those gardens and gardeners. So perhaps a microgreen work day at our early childhood center may be in the future for next year.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see, Anne was sharing that some seeds are coated with mercury or toxic coating. I've never heard about the mercury before, but I would guess that would be a good reason to do seed saving. Do you recommend or do you teach seed saving in your community gardens?
We do. We have 3 gardens in our program that is very much a part of their mission. At our monthly meetings, everyone's able to share what they're doing. And those folks who have spearheaded the seed saving, that has kind of trickled into some other gardens as well. It's something I encourage, but we have to be mindful that not every place, space, and community have the means and time to do that. So it's something we encourage, but we can't mandate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody wanted to start this type of program in their community, how would you suggest they get started?
I think the most important thing is conducting a tried and true needs assessment and having a lot of focus groups and talks with your communities and your neighborhoods. What I've seen in the 5 or 6 years that I've been working in food systems is a lot of times a nonprofit or maybe an academic, someone in higher academia sees a community that struggles with food insecurity, and the nonprofit or the person in academia takes it on themselves to apply for a very massive grant to implement a community garden in this space. But what they didn't do was ask this community, is this something that you all want? And then it becomes a project that is thrust upon a community that may not have the means or desire to support it. So I think the biggest thing is doing that needs assessment and making sure that this is something that your neighborhood wants and is going to support. Otherwise, you get the garden tilled up in February, and come April, it's covered in Bermuda grass and nuts edge and nothing's happening. So making sure that your community is on board is your biggest number one. And then 2, finding the space and finding the funding to make it happen. But number 1 is the most important number 1 that I oftentimes see people gloss over. So
yeah, include community.
Yes.
You may have a beautiful vision, but you want to make sure you have buy-in from the community. You have a team, you've got a posse, you've got a crew that's going to do that with you. And some people get intimidated by that, but that's actually the most fun part, is when you connect with other people and you get to meet your neighbors and you get to have new friendships. It's the most rewarding part, I think, of gardening is connecting with other people. Okay, so Anne asked, would you allow bees to be funded through your program? Is that considered like soil or seeds? Would you?
So yes, bees and birds, we have funded in the past.
Birds?
We,
Actually, how do you fund birds?
well, not birds, but bird houses.
Oh, bird houses.
like,
Okay.
bird watering stations, whatever that may be, because birds are also pollinators. We do shy away though from livestock. And that's because, again, this program is coordinated by just one position, and it would be very difficult if, you know, in one given day, 9 gardens had chicken disasters and
Yeah.
and it's also difficult, you know, livestock within city limits has a lot
Yep.
of legal kind of boundaries. But bees are an absolute yes.
That's great.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, it's now 1 minute after 8, and we had you booked from 7:30 to 8. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being with us. And was
Thank
that
you all for having me. I really,
that was informational, wasn't it, everybody?
Yeah, I love that our mission is so in alignment. We're all working towards the same thing. Cause I live in the city of Milwaukee. So there's a lot of food insecurity here. And one thing I will say about Zen was talking about building community is that there's pretty much not one person in my neighborhood that didn't agree that we all need to have better food security.
Yep.
It's just
Everybody.
getting people to buy in on doing the work.
yep.
And we did have a huge community garden up the street, but it wasn't near anybody's houses. And
Mm,
it's now just, like you said, it's all grown over.
Yep,
It's kind of
location is
sad, it's kind
very-
of sad, but you know, the area I live in, there's more crime than in other areas.
Yeah.
So that's also an issue. I don't know if you have that issue in Little Rock.
In some neighborhoods, absolutely. But we don't discriminate. We serve wherever a garden is and with whatever community wants our support. So, but I will touch on that. I think a lot of folks, in terms of the workload, a lot of folks love the idea of community gardens and urban growing spaces. They love the idea in the early spring and in the early fall. But come July in 110-degree heat in central Arkansas, interest significantly dwindles.
Yeah, air conditioning
So-
becomes very popular.
Yes.
for spaces. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, we can totally relate to that. So it takes commitment and dedication and asking people to be accountable, having people sign up, I would imagine, right? Once they write their name on the dotted line that they're going to be there
Mhm.
that weekend. Yeah, so it really does take a communication and coordination. And okay, so Anne's saying your neighbors didn't want the garden because they thought junkies would be partying or sleeping in the garden. That's a new one. I've never heard of that. But okay, I guess
Yeah.
if you have benches, right? I guess, yeah.
Yeah, and we have had in certain gardens, we've had some drug fueled vandalism, I would argue, and we
Yeah.
have had some folks who have spent nights in some of the gardens. But we do have one garden specifically that works with the North Little Rock unsheltered population. And so there is one garden that actually does allow for some folks to spend the night there in the early spring and summer in exchange for some help with the garden. And that was a pilot program with one of our gardens this year, and it actually worked out really, really well. And so yeah, there's always going to be challenges, but there are always solutions, I think, is the most important thing to keep in mind.
And it shouldn't stop you from trying.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always a solution to be had. Well, is there anybody else that have any other questions? And if you need to go, Anna, we totally understand. We probably have some other people that can answer questions online too. If they're Mark, Dudla could answer some. Anybody else have any other questions? Not right now. Okay.
I'll be sending out, thank you for letting me I'll send everybody out the slideshow tomorrow so you can get all our contact information. So thank
Excellent.
you, Anna.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
very-
I really
very-
And it was
appreciate
very
it.
inspiring.
Oh,
We're
thank
excited.
you.
We need to see this all across the country, don't we, folks? We need to see community gardens all across the country. Big thumbs up. I mean, this just needs to happen, and it's a wonderful thing to happen. There's so many benefits from it, even if we didn't need it to happen because of food insecurity. it's a wonderful thing to have happen. It really gets
Just for the community.
just for the community and boost moods. I mean, you could be saving lives. You don't know that, but somebody could go out and garden instead of having, suicidal thoughts that day. They go out and get in the garden. You could really be saving lives with these community gardens. So the human connection and the connection with the earth and the soil and the birds and the bees it's just what life is all about. It's so important. So thank you so much for supporting your community and such a young woman with such enthusiasm. We have a giant yes over here from Gary. Thank you.
Oh, thank you all so much. I really am honored to have been invited to this. And
Oh, we're so happy to have you.
if it's all right with all of you all, I would like to share this organization with the gardens that I work with, both in
Please.
North Little Rock and others in Central Arkansas, because I think the more that all of us unite and become loud about the fact that feeding our neighbors is an important thing and having that connection not only with our community and our earth, I think change is afoot.
It
So
is.
thank you all. I appreciate it.
Yes, we appreciate it. At the Neighborhood Food Network, we are promoting and supporting creating national food security and health and community one street at a time. And you can do that with your neighbors. You just start talking to your neighbors. It can be about a community garden, but it also can be about growing food right on your front yard, right in your backyard, right on your rooftop, right on your balcony. And when you start doing that, everything transforms. You become generous. You get connected with your neighbors. You get to benefit from their generosity. You get to connect with people all up and down your street, and may happen one person at a time. That's okay. It may happen 3 people or 6 people at a time on your street. But when it does expand, you will find that you have more food than you know what to do with. Anne becomes the tomato fairy with wings, and she's giving out tomato plants all up and down her street. So we love it. Thank you very much for being on the call with us tonight. Thank you, Anna, very much for being with us.
Thank you all. We'll be in touch.
Oh, and Anne's got one more thing to share.
I got this in the mail today, everybody. It's my Baker Creek seed catalog, and it's 530 pages. I'm like, as I like to say, a heroin addict in a poppy field.
Show us how thick that is. Holy mackerel.
It is. Well, there's 2 different catalogs for Baker Creek. One is this one, which gives there's a lot of backstory and history in these. And then there's a smaller one, which is still huge. But it's be that time of year where looking at the seed catalogs helps you look forward to the next season. So
yeah, it's great. Yeah, thank you. We thank Baker Creek. They're one of our sponsors for Moms Across America. They have been in the past, and we really appreciate them. So yeah, check them out. They're heirloom seeds, and they test their seeds for germination rates. That's something that a lot of seed companies don't do. So they make sure to have high germination rates, which means more seeds for your money. So thank you, Anna. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Anne, and everybody from all across the country for being on the call tonight. Have a
good
great
night, everyone.
night.
Thanks, Anna. Thanks, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.